Hey everyone, how's it going today? And welcome to another episode. So in today's episode, what I really want to talk about, as the title suggests, is really about my personal predictions and about where I see the current job market, unemployment, labor market, and everything in that world going forward into the future from here. Now, half of this video, we might show some articles to talk about actual statistics about what's going on right now in our economy. But the other half of this video is really going to be talking a lot more from my own personal experiences. Because if you are someone that's brand new here, maybe one of the biggest differences between my channel and my video and maybe other videos you might have seen on this topic is that there are a lot of videos that are going to be talking about unemployment, the labor market, the job market, but that the people that are talking about this, they're employed. Whereas for me, I'm actually someone that's hunting for a job because I don't do YouTube full time. Therefore, everything you're gonna hear, half of it is gonna be from articles and resources, but the other half is gonna come from personal experience as someone that is actually living the unemployment, not the unemployment because I am employed, but living the job hunting situation and the struggles of what it is like going through right now, trying to find a new job. So I am employed outside of this, but I am trying to hunt for the new opportunities. And that's why, because of that reason, I'm also actively applying for jobs, like a lot of people that might be watching this video, or that maybe are currently employed but are afraid of potentially being laid off or losing their jobs. Then welcome aboard, because you are at the right video. So with that being said, let's just get right to this video and talk all about the labor market, unemployment, the job market, the future, the predictions about where things are going, AI. We might cover a little bit about AI, outsourcing, and everything in that world. But let's get started. Like, comment, subscribe, and let's get rolling. So the first thing that I think is really important to note that we have to start by talking about is really about the fact that I think a lot of the struggles or the successes about how easy or difficult it is to find a job is going to be very dependent on your industry. Because right now, as we are looking at the job market, there are some industries that actually might not be doing that bad. Now, I don't work in those industries, so if you do work in a particular industry that I mentioned, feel free to maybe comment down what industry you work in and then what it's like currently in terms of finding a job in your particular industry and what you are currently experiencing, because it's always great to hear from you guys and hear from a first-hand perspective about what it's genuinely like. And these are the stories that you can't get from a news article. You have to actually hear from actual people that are living through it. But the first thing that we really have to talk about is that there are going to be some industries that are actually not doing that bad, actually. So for example, I've heard healthcare is not doing that bad. I've heard law is not doing that bad. Healthcare, at the very end of the day, we are always going to need doctors. And at the end of the day, working in healthcare is also a profession where you kind of have to be in person, because you have to, manage. I know there's obviously like telehealth and it depends on the specific kind of doctor you are. But for a lot of different doctors or a lot of different positions in healthcare, you sort of have to be there in person. So you don't have to worry about outsourcing, and if anything, there might even be a little bit of a shortage of people that work in healthcare and also that work in law services or anything like that. Financial services, same story. There are some industries that are actually doing reasonably okay. But then you also have some other industries that are actually doing okay, but are in danger of not doing okay. So maybe one example of that is the industry in construction. Now, I actually interestingly used to work in construction, but I don't work in construction now. So if you work in construction, feel free to comment. But there are a lot of predictions right now that if the housing market really does end up going sour because of the potential recession that some people are predicting, then what might ultimately potentially happen is that if people are not building houses, then the construction industry is also going to be impacted because there's nothing to physically build when it comes to things like bridges, infrastructure, everything in that particular world. But then you have some other industries that are actually really struggling. For example, one industry I know is tech. A lot of people that work in tech, and again, feel free to comment if you work in tech, have talked about how intensely fierce and competitive the job market is right now in tech, because of how so many people want to get into the tech industry because they see it as the future, which it is the future. Tech is the future, but because of that reason also comes increased competition to be able to land those jobs. In my specific industry, because like mentioned is that I don't do YouTube full time, I currently work in media. In media and production, our industry is not doing very well either. I know for very strong statistics, and this is something from personal experience, is that I have talked to employers firsthand for feedback when I have applied for jobs, and I've I've even received word that there are many job positions or companies right now in the media industry that will sometimes make a job posting, and they will receive, and you're gonna have to guess this out, but they will receive over 1,000 applications for sometimes just 20 positions. So it really puts things in perspective that when you get rejected from those jobs, no wonder most people are going to be rejected from those jobs, because it also makes you wonder that if 1,000 people are competing for just 20 positions, what's going to happen to the other 900 something people that do not get that position? They're going to be left unemployed or just searching for work or the next opportunity, and it's going to make things even more difficult. I know, for example, the government, that's another industry I know that's been struggling as well, because under the Trump administration, there are a lot of talks, and not just talks, but there's also a lot of things that have already been happening in the government, where the government and many sectors in the government, if you've been following this channel, you probably already know it. We've talked about this, about how many areas of the government are currently going through budget cuts. As a result, they're laying off government workers. What was once believed to be a very safe and secure position working for the government is no longer as safe and secure as it once was. So I think those are basically the general breakdowns about the popular industries, about how things are doing. Is that the bottom line behind this one is it's just going to depend so much on the specific industry that you work in. But hence, feel free to leave a comment down below what it's like in your particular industry. But the next thing that I really want to talk about is really about the topic of outsourcing. So this one is very interesting because one of the reasons why a lot of people predict that the job market is going to go down and get even worse going forward from here is that there are many industries, especially in the tech industry, and I use tech again because I know there's so many people that work in tech, that in the tech industry, there are a lot of positions, and it's not just tech, I'm just using this as an example, but there's a lot of positions in tech where the job can be outsourced or done remotely to people in foreign countries. So when you are in a situation where there are a lot of people in America that are trying to compete for these positions, but now they're trying to hire instead internationally in foreign countries, they're trying to, hire people that, where the cost of living is a lot cheaper, where the cost of labor is a lot cheaper, then it's going to lead to a lot of problems and a lot of difficulties and a lot of issues. So one of the reasons why that it is expected that the job market might potentially worsen before it gets better is because of the outsourcing situation, and also because of high tech, because of AI that might potentially take many jobs away. What's going to happen is that some of the jobs that we currently see in today's just world may not even exist in a couple of years, or even if they do end up existing, they may be doing cuts in costs where there's just not going to be hiring as many positions because there's a lot more efficient ways to accomplish the same task. So what I mean by that is, maybe as an example, is that what used to maybe take 20 people to do might now, because of technology, can be accomplished with only 5 people. So those other 15 people, they're going to be potentially getting cut, and that's going to be making things even more difficult going forward from here. So just some thoughts I think that is important to share. So basically, the idea really behind this one is just AI outsourcing and international labor that might potentially be taking jobs away to make it even more difficult. But the next thing that I really want to talk about is also really about the general economy, because at the time right now, and although I know and I'm aware that, people have been predicting a recession is potentially going to come, because of so much that is going on in our economy, and feel free to leave your comments down below about your prediction, some people predict that a recession might potentially come in the near future because of how hard inflation and everything has been hitting us right now. So why do I say all of this is that because if the economy truly does end up worsening or going sour, there are going to be a lot of businesses that might potentially struggle from this. I know, for example, one thing that might happen is talking about the tariff situation. Now, the tariff has been something that some people have been saying, there's been opinions all over the place when it comes to Trump's tariffs. If you have been following this channel for a while now, we've made several videos talking about the tariffs. So if you guys are brand new here, feel free to check those out, or and also consider subscribing if you guys want to. But the idea is that with the tariff situation, what's ultimately going to happen, and this part's a little bit of a prediction and opinion, but there is a logic that goes on to this opinion, is that with tariffs, if Donald Trump really does end up not just implementing but increasing the tariffs that already exist right now and really making it a strong position, what's going to happen is that it's going to drive inflation and make things even worse. If inflation ends up truly getting out of hand, people are not going to have that money to be able to pay for these increased costs. And this is going to lead a lot of businesses to suffer. If a lot of businesses start suffering, then they're not going to be hiring people. They're going to be downsizing. If anything, they're going to be laying off people. They're going to be trying to cut costs. They're going to be trying to lay off people. They're going to be trying to save money. They're going to potentially be just struggling in general. And so a lot of this stuff, especially if you are someone that works in a business that is very product oriented. So basically any business that involves like selling a physical product where tariffs are going to potentially take a hit to them, these are areas that are going to potentially be impacted very harshly. So, the idea really is the tariffs and the struggling businesses that might potentially come about as a result of the tariffs. That's going to be another thing that's going to potentially worsen the labor market even more so going forward from here. Now, the next thing that I really want to talk about is really going to be about the mismatch of skills and what is the actual unemployment rate that's actually happening inside of our country right now. So why this is really important is that because if you look up the statistics right now, you will see that statistically, just what a lot of resources have said is that the unemployment rate in our country right now in the United States of America currently stands at right around 4.1%. However, when I look out on the streets of New York City, which is where I'm from, when I look up throughout the internet at different articles and forums and places that I've seen, a lot of people estimate that the actual true unemployment rate, when you actually factor in it's defined to be considered someone that's unemployed, may actually be a lot higher than 4.1%. And some people have argued that it might even be in the 20-something% range, which is crazy because, that's seeing a 20-something% unemployment is very different than seeing a 4.1%. That's like five times the number, you know what I mean? And so if anything, it's certainly going to be true when it comes to the underemployment rate, because there are a lot of people that may be currently employed and working a job, but they're either working only on a part-time basis, so they're still seeking opportunities because they're not working full-time, they're just working part-time, or they're working a job where it's a job that they are technically considered employed because they're working at the end of the day, but is not a job that is aligned with their skill set and the job that aligns with the industry that they deep down inside really want to be in. So for example, there's a lot of people that may be college graduates that, are graduated with a degree in maybe computer science, right? And they're looking for a software engineering job. And again, this is just one example. You can use a lot of other examples as well, but are currently employed, but they're currently working in retail or hospitality or food services, right? So they're by definition technically considered, employed. But when you factor in that situation, the underemployment rate about people that are actually not just employed, but working a proper job full-time with benefits, that's well-paying, that's aligned with their career goals and where they want to go, it's probably a lot higher than 4%. Some of this, again, there are articles that have talked about this, but a lot of this stuff comes from personal experience, that of what I have seen from just friends talking to people in real life, from just looking at forums, pages, internet, forums, pages, comment sections, and just all sorts of different resources that you find off of the internet. So that's just something to consider. But the overall idea really behind this is that the point behind this is that the conclusion to this is that a lot of this is basically going to be very industry specific. To maybe recap, it's going to depend on where you currently work, the industry you're trying to get into, but collectively as a whole, if you are currently struggling to find a job, the prediction right now is that it's going to potentially get worse before it gets better. And I think that's the important thing, and the rant that maybe I've already been talking so much about on this video, to really be able to absorb. Of course, I would love to hear your predictions. Feel free to comment down where you think the job market is going to go from here, the unemployment, the labor market, the situation. Feel free to share any stories, because I would love to hear them, because again, nothing beats real life interaction with real life people. And the idea is, we just have to see going forward from here what the future holds, when it comes to the labor market. Are things going to get better? Is AI and, outsourcing and everything going to be impacting the labor market and truly worsening it? We just have to see where things go forward from here. So with that being said, that's really just what I wanted to cover in today's video. So if you guys found that insightful, as always, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell if you guys haven't done so already, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.